Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most monumental pieces of music in cinematic history. I'm talking about the absolute, staggering legacy of the Titanic theme song, My Heart Will Go On. You know the one. It's a song that completely defined an era, shattered records left and right, and basically became permanently etched into our pop culture. But the story behind how it actually came to be, it is absolutely wild.
So, let's jump right into this. I want you to picture a world where this iconic track was completely scrapped. Just imagine a timeline where Rose and Jack's epic romance on the silver screen had absolutely no soaring vocal theme to back it up. Sounds crazy, right? But the truth is, the biggest movie song of the 90s literally almost never existed. It faced massive roadblocks, flat-out rejections, and some really intense resistance from the very people who created it.
Just to put this into perspective, look at this number, 15 million. That is the jaw-dropping amount of global copies sold, making it one of the best-selling singles of all time. I mean, this number instantly sets the stakes for our story today. We aren't just talking about a popular song. We're talking about a cultural juggernaut that generated millions and reached literally every corner of the globe. So how in the world did a multi-million seller almost end up in the trash bin?
Well, to understand that, we have to look at hurdle number one, the director's rule. This is all about James Cameron's incredibly strict vision for Titanic.
See, director James Cameron had an absolute, unwavering rule against including a pop song. He was terrified of making a cheesy movie. His stance was crystal clear. Absolutely no cheap Hollywood pop songs tacked on to the end credits. He wanted a purely orchestral score that would just leave audiences glued to their seats in stunned silence. But then, on the flip side, we have his legendary composer, James Horner. Horner felt that to truly capture the emotional weight at the end of the film, they desperately needed a deeply emotional 8-minute pop track. He just knew a vocal ballad was the key to wrapping up the story, even if his director completely 100% forbade it. And if the director wasn't enough, he hit hurdle number 2, the singer's refusal. Turns out, Celine Dion really wasn't interested.
So Horner teams up with lyricist Will Jennings, and they start secretly writing the song anyway. Sneaky, right? And Horner knew, without a doubt, Celine Dion was the only voice for this. But surprisingly, she flat out hated the idea. Her exact words were, "The song didn't appeal to me. I was probably very tired that day. I didn't want to sing it." She literally had to be convinced to even give it a try. Actually, it was our husband and manager at the time, Renee Angelil, who had to step in to save the day. He negotiated with Horner and basically begged Celine to just do a simple, totally low-pressure demo recording. She reluctantly agreed, purely doing it as a favor.
Which brings us to a really pivotal point in our story, the secret session, a truly magical moment in the studio.
So 5 weeks after James Horner first meets with a very reluctant Celine Dion, they set up this secret, high-stakes studio session. And remember, director James Cameron still has absolutely zero idea any of this is happening. And the sheer magic of what happened in that room, it's almost hard to believe. One single take, the entire vocal track was recorded perfectly on the very first try, and it was never re-recorded. Celine Dion, who was tired and didn't even want to be there, steps up to the mic and just delivers an absolute masterclass. Get this, that incredibly famous official single that dominated the radio for years? It's literally just that initial, unedited demo. They just built a massive orchestral arrangement around her one phenomenal take. And the reaction inside the studio was nothing short of legendary. Horner later talked about this session, and he noted that Celine Dion herself actually started crying about 2/3 of the way through the song. She was singing it as if the lyrics were the story of her own life. Everyone in the control room was in tears. Horner said it felt like a literal electric shock ran through the room the second she started singing. The whole thing ended with this incredibly emotional group hug. They all knew, right then and there, that they had captured lightning in a bottle. But, as we know, having a magical song wasn't enough. So now we enter the next grueling phase, the waiting game, hiding the cassette tape.
Even with that undeniable studio magic, Horner still had to find a way to secretly persuade a very, very stubborn director to actually put the song in the movie. And just look at his intense dedication on this timeline. Day 1, Horner writes the song. By week 5, they pull off that secret one-take session with Celine. But then, for an entire month, Horner is quite literally walking around day after day carrying the cassette tape in his pocket. He's just waiting for Cameron to be in a good enough mood to hear it. It wasn't until a month and a half later that Cameron finally accepted it, and honestly, that was only after testing it with a live audience in New York who were moved to absolute tears. As James Horner himself explained it, "I secretly recorded with Dion. I had to wait a month and a half for Cameron to accept using the song." So the key takeaway here is strategic patience.
Horner didn't just force it. He waited for a very specific day when Cameron was absolutely thrilled with the film's visual effects. That's when he finally pulled that tape out of his pocket and played it. And when Cameron heard it, it clicked. He immediately recognized that this love theme perfectly matched Jack and Rose's story, recognizing it as this incredibly effective cinematic tool.
And thank goodness he did. Because that brings us to the immortal legacy, from a secret demo to global dominance.
When Titanic dropped in December 1997, this song experienced a rise that was just astronomical. And what's kind of hilarious is that James Horner was actually locked away in a studio working on a totally different project at the time. He was completely oblivious to its massive success until record executives started calling him an absolute shock. And honestly, they had every right to be shocked. I mean, look at this. It hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in February 1998. It kept the Titanic soundtrack album at #1 for an unprecedented 16 weeks, which is just unheard of for a movie score. It completely swept the music industry, winning 4 Grammy Awards, including Record and Song of the Year. And of course, it took home the 1998 Academy Award for Best Original Song. This monumental success is just an incredible contrast to the initial disdain the track faced from the very people who made it.
And for Celine Dion, well, it completely defined her musical career. It elevated her to an absolute global superstar. Looking back on the whole crazy experience, she shared this fantastic self-aware reflection. I only recorded it once, but since then, I've sung it about 3 billion times. I just love that. It goes to show how one single, reluctant, tired take transformed her entire life forever.
It really makes you think about the fragile nature of art, doesn't it? How much serendipity is involved in the things we love. So, I want to wrap up this explainer by leaving you with a thought to chew on. What other legendary pieces of our culture almost never existed because of a simple no? The story of My Heart Will Go On is this perfect reminder that sometimes defying the rules, having a little strategic patience, and embracing one pure moment of studio magic can create a masterpiece that outlives us all. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today, and I'll catch you in the next one.